Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Archer Report. I'm your host, Steele Archer, and a really exciting episode here today because we've got Charlie Cam, the United States presidential candidate, here to help us through some issues concerning the USTP and the presidential run of the United States Transhumanist Party. We've got him on the end of a long day, so we won't hold him around too long, but that is the plan, to at least extract some information. So, with no further ado, Charlie Cam, it's really good to see you back on the show. How are you?
Hey, it's great to be back. I'm doing quite well. A lot of lockdown, staying in and stuff like that. But I don't have the virus. I don't have COVID, so that's good news. But otherwise, I'm doing fine. How about you? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks very much. I sort of navigated had to navigate the COVID issue like everybody else in the world, and we're coming out now, and we're starting to reorientate ourselves and reorganize ourselves. It was a hectic time for everybody, I think, and in some ways, the reorganization will be better. In some ways, it's worse. For example, the better part of the organization, not in our case because I stuffed up this interview with you in terms of timing, but in general, reorganizing the workstation to closer to my home is a plus. So I can do shows, without having to maneuver too far out into the public and doing all that. On a negative side, especially because of the international audience and stuff, now I have to do it, and I have roommates, and I have people living above me and below me, and which means I have to orientate my show hours to certain times so I don't disrupt other people, which is fairly annoying because before I used to be able to do shows well into the morning. Sometimes I stay up to 2 or 3 a.m. in order to get a show out. I can yell and talk and do all that sort of stuff. I can't do that anymore, especially with international time zones. So that's a negative. You get a reduced spectrum of working time, essentially from 9 to 5, which is not very good. But in other ways, it is a bit better. So there's positives, there's negatives. Leaning on, especially for shows, I still think for shows, in terms of what I do, do that nation or I do here, with the international connectivity, you do need a space. I do need a space that's mainly out of earshot of other people, so I don't disturb them in their daily routines. And I think that's important. But if it was just an Australian show, or it was just a show within my time zone, the reorientation would be better. But it's not. Transhumanism is not just a one time zone deal. We're talking about an international community. Let's talk about transhumanism because that's your wheelhouse. That's where it's at. Transhumanism, life extension. You're running for president. Let's talk about your campaign. Firstly, what is the United States Transhumanist Party, and what is your role in the United States Transhumanist Party?
Well, the United States Transhumanist Party is a political party that represents transhumanism, and that's the idea of extending life through the use of technology, the betterment of basically of all humanity through advanced technologies, the cutting edge things that are happening. That's really the foundation of what transhumanism is really all about.
And what is your role within the Transhumanist Party at present?
As you said, I'm the presidential nominee for the 2020 elections coming up here in the United States for the Transhumanist Party. I'm also the marketing director of the USTP. It kind of ties in because I'm basically trying to promote the idea of transhumanism in both positions, and basically that's what I've been doing most of my adult life anyway, even before I belonged to the party.
Yeah, and because we're on a new channel now, so some people might be wondering what your history is like, what your credentials are like, etc. So would you like to quickly just tell people about some of the highlights of your career. If people want to check out the full details, they can go back and I can link that. But just some of the big highlights, Transvision contest, not contest, the Transvision stuff, and
Conference. Yeah, sure, I can talk about
William
that.
Shatner.
Yeah, what
and
happened? Right. Yeah, no, I've been, I grew up basically as a non-religious type, in a non-religious type family. We were very science oriented. So I always, if people ask me how I came to be, it was the Big Bang Theory, evolution, and here I was. So, but as I was growing up, I noticed that all my friends knew where they were going, to heaven or hell, and I had nowhere to go. And I got, you get a little apprehensive when you start to ponder existential questions. And I started to look into different ideas and about what is life, what is death, what are all these things, how does it apply to me, and is it really is life as futile as Woody Allen might suggest in some of his movies? But I started to really get into all sorts of philosophy. I was part of my minor in college, and but even before then, even when I was a teenager, I was reading books by Abraham Maslow, and I started to find out about other things like cryonics, and I saw, wow, that's a possibility. Although at the time everybody's telling me, oh, that won't work, But in the late '90s, well, actually in the '80s, I read the book by Eric Drexler called Engines of Creation, and that really was pretty powerful stuff. He first talked about nanotechnology. I think that was the first time I read about it. And prior to that, I'd read about Richard Feynman, and he'd kind of gotten into nanotechnology. Obviously, he's kind of one of the legends in the whole field of transhumanism in a sense. But it was in the late '90s when I found out that there was an organization called the World Transhumanist Association. And and here was a whole group of people that were pretty much like-minded like me. And I had a background in science and philosophy, but I also had a background in music. And so I as I was reading all these books, and I found out about Ray Kurzweil, and I read his book, Age of the Intelligent Machine, in 1990, and Age of the Spiritual Machine in 2000. And then I found out he was going to come out with a book called Singularity is Near in 2005, and I was really waiting for that book. I mean, I was excited because I was already now hooked on the whole idea of life extension, transhumanism, and Ray Kurzweil in particular. He just became my idol, so to speak. And when I finally got that early edition and I ordered it as early as I could, I remember just falling in love with that book, and I read it passionately. And when you're passionate about something, you can't stop. And I basically read it in 1 or 2 nights at the most. And it was 600 pages, but boy, I couldn't put it down. And I thought to myself, that was the most profound book I ever read. And I thought, everybody I know needs to read this book, except I knew that everybody I know won't read the book because it's 600 pages and it gets a little technical. But like I said, I had a music background, so I thought maybe if I just synthesize all the points in the book and put it into a song, maybe people will pay some attention and actually learn something out of it. And I knew the song, I knew the word, I knew that the book had millions of words in it. And like I said, I had a background in music. Gilbert and Sullivan was I used to perform in that when I was a little kid. And so I knew all those songs, and I thought there was one called I Am the Very Model of a Modern Major General, from the Pirates of Penzance, and it had a lot of words in it. So I just took all the words out. I repurposed it with Ray Kurzweil's definition of singularity, and I called it I Am the Very Model of a Singularitarian. And I sent that song out into the internet, onto YouTube and everything, and it found its way to Kurzweil Technologies, and they really liked the song. And at the same time, in 2005, I went to my first World Transhumanist Conference in 2005 in Caracas, Venezuela. And it was hosted by Jose Cordero. You might be familiar with him. He's another, amazing MIT graduate like Kurzweil, transhumanist guy. And I went down, that's where I met him. I met Natasha Vita Moore and Max Moore and Ben Goertzel. And, I was impressed with that conference, and I thought, I'd love to really move the idea of transhumanism forward. And I thought I should, hold my own conference and try to make it really, really big. And so I contacted them and I said, look, I want to hold this conference, and I want to do it in Chicago. And they said, well, we got a couple of, we already have 2006 booked up in Helsinki, but we got 2007 open. Maybe you're interested in that. Although we do have some bids from Uganda and Madrid. And I said, well, boy, Madrid might be fun to go myself, but I don't know who wants to go to Uganda at that time. And but I said, but I noticed that when I looked at their archives, they never had Ray Kurzweil as their keynote speaker for whatever reason. And to me, I thought that if there was ever a transhumanist, whether he calls himself that or not, that's the guy. So, and I knew that he liked my song. So I told the World Transhuman Association, I said, hey, listen, if I get Ray Kurzweil as my keynote speaker, do I get the gig? And they said, yeah, that's hands down. There you go. So I contacted Ray and the people that work with him, particularly Celia Black, who was his assistant forever. And, they love the idea of having Ray come and speak because they really like my song that I did. So I put together this conference. It's a 3-day conference with the help of Celia, who I hired to become, help with organizing the whole thing. And boy, that was an amazing conference. It was a 3-day conference. Of course, Ray Kurzweil was the keynote speaker, but I knew that I wanted to draw a lot of people into the conference, but also to get the awareness of transhumanism out there. And I thought, if I get a celebrity, that would help a lot. And I thought the only celebrity that made sense to me, particularly for we have an older demographic for the most part, but who was the actor or actress that represents movies or TV shows where humanity, survived, didn't, terminate itself. So, Schwarzenegger was out because he's always, having robots kill everybody. But obviously the idea was Star Trek, and the epitome of Star Trek to me was William Shatner, Captain Kirk. So I contacted his agent, and I wanted to get him to come to the conference. And his agent was saying, "Well, look, he's not just going to come to a conference." I said, "Well, it's a really good conference. We got a lot of great speakers. We got Ray Kurzweil." And his agent says, "Oh, wait, Ray Kurzweil. All right, hang on. Let me get back to you." Well, it turns out Shatner's a fan of Ray Kurzweil. So that pretty much locked that in, and I had Shatner. So, when I got him on board, boy, we sold out right away. And not only that, but when I first got Ray, all the scientists wanted to participate as well. All the people in the whole life extension community, because Ray was kind of the kingpin. But boy, when I had Shatner, people were excited about coming to the conference for that too. So we had Ray as our keynote speaker, and Shatner, but also Aubrey de Grey and Ben Goertzel and Peter Diamandis and like I said, Max Moore, Natasha Vita Moore, Martine Rothblatt, who is the founder of Sirius Satellite Radio. Just a whole bunch of amazing speakers, and the conference went off really well. It was a great 3-day conference, and it was at that conference where Ray Kurzweil, at the end of it, on the 3rd day when we had the dinner, thanking for the speakers, and myself, we're all sitting in there, and we held it at the Field Museum, so we were literally surrounded by dinosaurs talking about the future. But on that 3rd day when we sat there, I'm sitting next to Ray Kurzweil, and next to him is Peter Diamandis. And they started talking about how, this is the kind of subject matter that they would like to maybe cover and explore and turn it into a bigger academic setting. And it was from there a year later when they launched Singularity University. So, my goal by holding that conference was really to spread the word of the idea of transhumanism and Ray Kurzweil's ideas about the singularity. And considering that that's where they kind of, came up with or basically put the idea together, that was kind of the seed of it. I was really happy to hear something came of it. So that was a great conference. And that's kind of part of my That to me is a big part of my background. And aside from me reading all those books and learning all about it, that really meant a lot to me because it not only did it launch, you know, a lot of people making ideas together, like what I just said. And also Martine Rothblatt, that's where she met David Hansen of Hansen Robotics, and they created Bina 48, which was the robot version of Martine Rothblatt's spouse. So one of the first, you know, artificial intelligent robots. So not only did it do all that, what I was glad about, but it also personally introduced me to all these great speakers, to actually become friends with a lot of them in a long-term basis. I mean, I'm still good friends, you know, with Martine Rothblatt. I just had lunch with her just last year, you know, before this COVID thing, you know, and considering I met her, you know, 13 years ago, it's good to have those kind of friends. Ray Kurzweil and I have become very good friends. I've met his wife, his family, his kids. I've been to his house. I've been to his other house. You know, he's got more than one. I've been to his company parties where I brought new videos that you might have seen some of them. You know, and that song that I did, I Am the Very Model of a Singularitarian, I created the music video for it that I used at the conference. And so you can see that music video online if you or any of your viewers want to ever see it. It's probably my most popular video in this whole transhumanist movement, because I think it's got over 150,000 views, which is probably not a lot in the world of music videos, but in the transhumanist community, that's probably a lot, or a fairly good size. But I've done a lot of music videos. I've become a regular presenter now at the RadFest, which has kind of become a big festival in its own right since 2016. They've held 4 of them now, I think. About 4 of them. 3 of them in San Diego, 1 in Las Vegas. They were going to do another one this year in Las Vegas, but you know, COVID got in the way. So they're going to have one online starting in October if anybody's interested in that. But I created new music videos for each of those conferences, all about life extension. And then I did a short film, and I created a short film called Undoing Aging, which actually won an award in a film conference. That one's on Vimeo, if anybody's interested in it. It was the longevity film competition. And, you know, after I became friends with Ray, I was involved in the production on his film, Transcendent Man. I was one of the producers on that. And I was also involved in the production of Singularities Near, the docudrama starring Paulie Perrette, who's a famous actress from NCIS TV shows. But that was a movie that was produced by Ray and Martine Rothblatt. We all went together to see the premiere of it in a Canadian film festival together. And my songs were featured in that film too. So I mean, it's been a really amazing journey to go from basically somebody interested in this or a fan into, you know, being so involved that I'm actually running for president of the United States Transhumanist Party. So it's exciting for me to be able to keep promoting this idea. And the reason I do it is because I think it's really important that people pay attention to this stuff, because this is coming. I mean, the idea of transhumanism is gonna do what Ray has predicted, because it has been happening. His predictions have become true for the most part. I mean, you know, he may have been off by certain time frames, but everything that he talks about or predicts has essentially come true. And he's not doing it through some magical guru guessing game. He just does it because he's been calculating based on the growth of computational powers, and he sees that it's on an exponential path, similar to the way you know, Moore's law works. And he's gone back further in time and extrapolated further into the future with it. And so far he's been on point. And right now he predicts the singularity will come by 2045. And there are a lot of things that are coming because of the advancement of technology that are relevant to all of society. And it's interesting because this COVID crisis has brought some of these things a little bit more to the forefront. So even though this is a terrible situation, and it really is, I mean, to think about all the people that are not just infected, but died, there's this, you know, silver lining, if you want to even call it that, about what's going on as far as some of the things, if you want to talk about that. But
Yeah, well,
I'll
I
take
mean,
a break here because I don't want to keep yapping.
no, that's really good, and people really need to know who you are and your background and you know, your credentials and your interests being, you know, at the forefront of life extension. But this still is although transhumanism and some of the singularity context stuff and AI is starting to gain traction in the media, it still hasn't gained traction to the point of being cast in a positive light. There's still a lot of grayness around the edges of these conversations, which is you know, at least there's conversation, but at the same time, it's there should be more positive coverage of some of these things in the media, and that's what we hope the USTP and yourself can get out to some media people and talk about the positive developments. And you know, if there was more positive talk, you know, we might have been able to sort out some of these problems like COVID earlier and quicker. And actually, you know, what do you think, hypothetically, what do you think the United States Transhumanist Party or the policies of the USTP could have done to either prevent or accelerate COVID cures or a COVID response when COVID first showed up? Do you think that the United States Transhumanist Party has you know, the policy options in order to, you know, when, you know, if it was in some sort of influential position, to respond differently than the way the Republican Party and the Democratic Party have responded, you know, to the COVID problem, to the COVID issue?
Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely. You know, the whole, you know, when you were asking me about what the Transhumanist Party stands for, and it's about life extension, well, it's about life extension based on scientific endeavors. So had there been for example, a transhumanist administration, whether it was in 2016 or now, you know, let's say it was me as the president, the budget would have been totally realigned. I mean, right now we spend more than half of our budget on military defense, which is unnecessary. When you think we spend more on our military than all of the other Western nations combined, you know, and it just isn't necessary. And I would allocate a lot more of the funding towards science. And you know, when you think about, of all the issues in the world, of all the issues, and people talk about, you know, if you ask people to name different things, they'll say, well, you know, some people will say, well, my job, you know, job's important to them. They don't want to lose their job because they need their money to put the food on the table. And another one is health. All right. Health is very important. Or climate crisis has become very important. But of all the issues that are out there, what you know, although health is tangential to this, but you don't hear about life and death, because people don't really think of that as an issue, because they take that as like, well, you know, you're going to die. I mean, this is just how it's been for all of existence, for all of humanity. But the reality is that even though that's been true for all of existence forever, there's been a change in the last, and if you want to look at it this way, since 1967 technically. But there's been a change because of science, that now death doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be so exact. You know, there was always a joke about two things that are definite in life: death and taxes. Well, those two things may no longer be definite anymore. You see, death, the problem is people just, because of the way society has been for so long, they don't even think about it. They just accept that it's going to come, and a lot of people believe in heaven, or even if they don't, they just assume that at some point it's going to happen, and so they don't think about it. But the reality is, we are in a position now where, and I don't want to say immortal, because that sounds a little predictive, and it also means you can't die, because, you know, maybe a meteorite or something crazy will happen. But the idea that we have to die in the normal genetic lifespan that we're already predetermined to have doesn't have to be the case. because of some amazing advances that are happening in gene therapy, in stem cell therapy, in nanotechnology. And now those things, for example, all of those things could have arrived a lot sooner in our society had we had a transhumanist administration, let's say back in 2016, had Zoltan Istvan won the presidency. We would be so much farther along. Because, by the way, there was already discussions about an imminent threat of a virus, of this type of virus. They were talking about that back in George W. Bush's administration. He had already talked about it. Obama talked about it. They already knew that this is a real threat. I mean, Bill Gates has been talking about it forever. So the problem was, because we allocate so much funding towards military, and we don't really stress the idea of the preciousness of life, that we just kind of squander our money on things that are like, well, those are important issues, but every issue I talked about isn't going to matter if you're dead, right? I mean, it's a very existential question and answer, and it's a simple one. If you die, it's terrible that the world climate could happen, but if you're dead, you won't even know. I always think about airplane policy, and I don't mean to sound like I'm going off the tangent here, but airplane policy for people with their seatbelts. They always sell it, or I'm sorry, the oxygen mask, right? So they say, like, now remember, if the oxygen mask drops, put it on yourself first before you help your neighbor. Because if you die, your neighbor's going to die because you weren't able to help them. It's the same principle. If you die, you're not any good to anybody. But if we can stay alive, if we can declare aging as a disease and really focus on a way to cure it, because that's what people like Aubrey de Grey are doing with the Sense Foundation, or Liz Parrish is doing with BioViva. There's a lot of great companies out there that are working on the idea of life extension, but they're not getting the kind of funding they should get. Instead we're spending a lot of money on things that are just not as important. And that is something that the Transhumanist Party would definitely realign, is the budget for existential crisis. Because think about this. Right now in this country, we have turned everything upside down as far as our day-to-day existence because of 150,000 deaths from COVID, which is tragic. However, 150,000 people die every day on this planet. Just from 100,000, or about 100 to 110,000 die from aging, and the other 40 to 50,000 die from accidents or war or murder or things like that. So if aging, for example, which 100,000 people die every day, if we called that the aging disease or some other name of a disease, well, people would be going nuts. And the priority is, but we need to look at it that way, because why not? I mean, I can understand not looking at it 100 years ago that way, because there was no scientific way to cure these things or to delay it. But there is now. There really is. And if we put our resources towards that, we could achieve that a lot sooner. And so a lot of the people that we love, and I guarantee all your viewers know somebody that they love that's died, and that person might be alive right now. And it saddens me to think that happens. I see it every day. And generally, you hear about celebrities because that's who makes the news. And you hear about somebody dying every day. Just yesterday, the other day, Regis Philbin. He's a big deal guy in the United States. He was a talk show host forever. He's a friendly guy, and he was on TV. I thought, what a shame he died. There's just a lot of great people that die every day. And I think, the sad thing is, why aren't they being cryopreserved? Cryonics has been around since the first guy was cryopreserved in 1967, James Bedford. That's why I mentioned 1967 earlier, because that technology has been around since 1967. So for 53 years, or whatever, I believe that's what something like that comes to. We literally, no, I think it's longer than that, but we could have been saving lives for a long time by cryopreservation if it had become something that was acceptable in our society. But it's not. and people aren't educated about it, or they're not aware of it, or they're skeptical. And that's what saddens me, because I know these things are out there, and I know people that know those things are out there, and yet they're not being utilized. Just like all the resources we have on this planet. And there's no, it's about education. That's the sad thing. And we can do it. We just need to allocate funds. So again, I apologize for my long-winded answer, but hey, if it was my administration, I'd be talking even longer. So
no, that's good. You mentioned some really interesting points, and I don't want to keep you around because I know you got to go in a sec. There's some interesting points there, and I think the problem that you mentioned, the military budget, it's about 5% of GDP, about 800 billion on the books, and it's well over $1 trillion in terms of black budget stuff. There are some positives that come out of defense spending in terms of development of new materials, new technologies, cyber stuff. The internet was a DARPA project, whether or a university project.
Well, I wouldn't eliminate it. I mean, I'll keep it around for the good stuff.
Yeah, so there are some arguments. The problem with the big problem with defense spending, it's this adversarial tribalism stuff. So we have to build bigger weapons in order to balance against bigger and bigger adversaries. That's a problem. But the real cost of defense spending, which people don't really think about, is actually the maintenance of equipment. So after you built a stealth fighter jet or a F-18, or after you develop all the good stuff out of it, which is actually the human ingenuity, thinking about the atom bomb, was created in order to stop World War II. And I mean, World War II was a horrible thing. World War I was a horrible thing. War is a horrible thing, full stop. Not advocating for that. But that was the energy that went into creating the atom bomb, which unlocked the nuclear process for us. Now, does history have to go this way? No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm agreeing with you that an investment in science and technology would unlock a lot of this stuff faster. But the big problem when it comes to defense spending is actually the maintenance. It's the maintenance costs of actually maintaining the war machines. So you've got all these expensive war machines that you've developed up to a certain point, but then a lot of those costs are just sunk costs into actually maintaining the technology. So a lot of the arguments for war, because you do hear a lot of the people saying, well, war, it perpetually innovates. It's a perpetual innovator. And by default, if you're talking about it's advancing science and defending us and stuff, you might as well do it through the military budget, because through the military budget, it's a perpetual advancement over an adversary. No, that argument falls apart, because actually a lot of that budget is going into is actually just maintaining the machines rather than innovating, which is why the USTP is correct when you actually have to reorientate the budget towards an innovation side of things. The other point that you make here, which is something that I'm very excited about, and what I think really needs to happen, is you mentioned cryonics and the sort of lackluster adoption of such a technology, and I think that really comes down to even one term of a USTP president or a transhumanist president or something, just 4 years. And what they would do in that 4 years, and what I would hope to see something like Charlie Cam administration do, or Zoltan Itzvan or something like that, is mainstream these life extension points so that people are forced to deal with them as a normalcy bias, as a normality. So when you go to your insurance, paper, and it's got Obamacare or Charlie Cam care or Trump care or whatever the care is, the insurance contract or whatever, there's a cryonics box, and you have to tick it, and you have to read it, and you have to research about the cryonics, because if you don't, and you tick the box, your premium is going to go up or down or this or that or whatever, or you're going to be automatic, and you're going to have to say, what is this thing? So, and then everybody will automatically sort of be educated on this issue by force, if you know what I mean, because you have to deal with this issue. And there's a lot of and like you say, the private sector is essentially underfunded in this area. BioViva, Aubrey de Grey over there at SENS Research Foundation and stuff like this. I mean, they're essentially left hanging because the way the public sector works is, you can sink funds into something perpetually on a return 10, 20, 30 years from now, and the government doesn't mind those sorts of long-term horizons. Whereas in the private sector, outside of NGOs, it's based on quarterly profits, monthly profits, or yearly profit return. And if you're talking about something like life extension or life extension research, it's very hard to say to somebody, I have a 10-year plan to make a company that will make profit in 10 years because of $2-3 billion worth of research that we need to commit to. That's a very hard argument to go up to investors or go to a bank and get a loan on that basis. So these private sector individuals and these public sector individuals need to realize that these have long-term horizons, and that the returns are long-term, and that they actually need significant funding and societal reorientation in order to support those sorts of enterprises, especially in the life extension. But these are growing. See, this is the other thing. You mentioned nanotech, you mentioned cyber, you mentioned a whole range of issues that are growing, and society is perpetually pushing these issues to the side because it doesn't want to deal with them outside what's comfortable. So a lot of people will argue incessantly over social media because it's easy, because it's in their face, and because it actually impacts them. Because you might get blocked, or Facebook might send you a message, or Twitter might send you a message saying you've said something good or bad and we don't like this, or you do, or the celebrity did something. That's easy to talk about. It's in your face, it's usable, it's accessible, and it has such an impact. But a lot of these other concepts, in some ways, racing ahead, and yet they're marginalized or they're pushed to the side because people just, for some reason, don't want to deal with these issues and these arguments. For example, the one that's really coming to the fore now is robotics. Robotics is now starting to force its way onto the scene. People are worried about robots in labor. They're losing their jobs to robots. Self-driving trucks and cars are coming along. We've got robots, domestic robots that are coming to clean your house. I mean, we already have Roombas on the floor doing your vacuum cleaning and stuff. We have Google AI assistants in our house, which assist us turning lights on and off and security, and get us up in the morning or whatever. So robots and these AI assistants, the kitchen ones are coming. Where you can order a meal and the kitchen robot will. So these things are coming, and they're slowly being integrated into society, and society is slowly starting to talk about them. But this is again the issue is because, okay, the integration is happening, but there's been no real big societal discussion or development saying, is this good? Is this bad? What do we want? It's just slowly integrating without much thought. And this is the same as the cryonics argument, or the same as the life extension argument, health. And I think that's why you said health was a bit of a weird one, because people want to protect their health, or they want to be safe, which is why they put money into defense. But they don't make the calculation of life and death. It's just they don't, for some reason, the life and death is just somewhere outside of the remit of rational thought, or some sort of thinking apparatus, which is a little bit awkward. And that's why we like Charlie Camp. That's why we like the United States Transhumanist Party. That's why we like other transhumanists and people like that, in order to try and normalize these debates, these discussions, trying to, I'm very upset with COVID in terms of many reasons, but in this context, the dismantling of the Radfest. I think Radfest and these other types of festivals, are really, really important to have that normalcy in that room with those people, connecting, who have the same idea, and they can strengthen their arguments in order to perpetuate these discussion points back out into society. There's a lot of technology festivals and things as well, which do the same sort of thing, and that's really encouraging as well. But Radfest, especially in the terms of you, it does this really well. It solidifies the arguments, it reinforces the arguments, and it knows how to sort of take the arguments and turn them into a normal conversational topic along the correct, loosely used, but correct line of conversation, not just some generic statement about improving your health, or not some generic statement about being safer from external adversaries. It's about life, and it's about death, and it's about how do we achieve longer life.
Oh, yeah. Well, I will say there, like I was saying before about the potential of the silver linings. So with regard to Radfest, you're right. It's unfortunate because Radfest is one of those festivals where it's more interactive with people, because they do intersperse it with people that go on stage and talk about science, and then they'll have entertainment, where there's people that'll sing or do a performance, or like I'll show a video or something like that. And there is always that fun aspect of the of networking with people together. On the other hand, and by the way, they are going to have a Radfest this year. It's just going to be online. But on the other hand, for example, we were going to have Natasha Vida Moore and I were actually trying to organize Transvision 2020 this year. We were going to hold it in Los Angeles. We'd been planning it since last year, and then when COVID came along, well, that just wasn't going to happen because we couldn't have everybody get together. However, here's the silver lining part. So what Humanity Plus did is they formed something called the Humanity Plus Summit, and they just held it last month, where they basically got almost all the speakers that we were going to get for the Transvision, even more, and they had them do it all online for a couple of days, where they just all came out and they did it online through Zoom meetings. But here's the fun kicker part of it all: it was free. That's the good part. In other words, what we're learning from COVID, or what's forcing us to be learned, is the idea of interactivity online. Everybody's kind of being forced to learn how to do online interview. I've never done this many online interviews or interacted online, with COVID, with Zoom or with Skype, as I've done this year because of COVID. And, seeing that, 3,500 people that came, that showed up for that conference. Transvision even Radfest didn't have that many people in some of their festivals. So it shows that, it brought the costs down, and it pushed the innovation of technology a little further into more people's minds. So yes, COVID's a terrible thing, and I agree with you that I would love to be there in person with all that stuff. But I try to look at the positives. It is moving people to accept more about the idea of using the internet for other things, and being more user capable with regard to getting into meetings or meeting with people or doing things. And I think this is also, Zoom got big, right, because of this. And I think you're going to see other companies flourish, and we're going to see these kind of interactive capabilities polished and better, and probably move a lot faster. And this is going to have ramifications for a lot of things in society, because one of the things that started now, because kids couldn't go to schools, they've been trying to have them do online learning. Now, people are saying, well, it's not working as good as it would be if they were in school. Well, part of that is because, the schedule of parents has been laid out for a long time, where they send their kids to school while they go to work. So it's really hard for people to readjust. And the idea of kids learning from a classroom online is still new. It's just like any other technology. It's going to be a little awkward and hard to readjust. But I do think that is the way it's going to go, because we're going to have much more immersive types of technology, some kind of virtual technology for classroom settings, and kids are going to get more used to it. And what that means is the cost it will be brought way down. So the idea that has been proposed, where they said, let's wipe out student debt and let's give free college. Well, that might be able to happen now. The concern was, will our budget be able to sustain that? Well, if we can supplement college courses by way of online learning, that would bring the cost way down. So we might be able to actually do that, because I do think, and this speaks to your other concern, part of the problem of people accepting the idea of, using cryonics or any of these other things, well, part of that problem is they're not educated about these things, or they're just not, they didn't get really good education like they might be able to get if they had free college. So I think having free college, but supplementing it online where it's cost effective by way of our country's budget, is a really smart thing to do. And it's a great way to get people more educated. So when they go to vote, they won't put, somebody in office that's incompetent. And, they'll also start to look at life in a bigger way and say, hey, you know what, maybe I don't have to die. Maybe there are alternatives. Maybe we can save grandpa with cryonics, and maybe I can use some kind of gene therapy. I think all of this stuff ties in. And I really think that, as bad as it is with this COVID, there's things like that could be made use of. It's like anything else in life. When something bad happens, you don't want to just roll around and cry. You want to you want to learn from it and see what you can do to better.
When life gives you a lemon, make lemonade. That idea. And I want to talk to more experts on this COVID issue and the acceleration of technology. A lot of the things we were talking about on this show has just accelerated at super speed, and I don't want to diminish anything you've said there, from the Zoom conferencing calls to the automation of work to the redistribution of supply chains to cyber advancements to, I think, a massive behind the scenes. I want to talk to Dr. Jeremy more about this. I think the digitalization, the VR movement is just accelerating. People working from home, etc. I think the general cleanliness and Charlie, you've noticed this? This isn't really what I want to talk about. I want to ask you one more question, because I know you've got to go before we do. But in the future, when you watch Star Trek or you watch The Future or whatever, it's always clean. Have you noticed that? It's always white rooms or blue rooms or something, and everything's nice and clean, and the doors are all open automatically and everything like that. That vision for me, as soon as COVID hit and you saw everyone cleaning everything and all that sort of stuff, for me, I was like, that is the beginning of a clean future.
Yeah.
Especially in public spaces.
You're right. It probably is. It makes sense. Well, think about it. That's another thing. This COVID crisis has probably educated a lot of people about what a virus is. They probably never knew anything about it. They didn't really understand it, and now people, because of microscopic technologies, people even know what the virus looks like. They make fun of it. It's that round ball thing with those red pointy things coming out. No one knew what the plague looked like, long ago in the olden days. So I think that you're right. Now people are concerned about, like, I don't want to touch this, I want that. Cleanliness is important, and I think that you're right. I think that's the start of the future. When we
that's what I saw straight away. So final question, because I know you got to go. I don't want to keep you here too long, because I started late, and that's my fault. The final question is, what can we expect from Charlie Cam and the United States Transhumanist Party up until the election, or in the next few months, or whatever? Because we've got just under 100 days now until the election, which looks like it's going to be between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And Charlie Cam too. But what can we expect to see in the future from your campaign? What can we look out for? What can we get excited for?
Yeah, well, I'm going to keep on trying to push, more and more interviews. I literally had an interview today, actually, with a fellow in Russia who's got a huge podcast. So it's the biggest one in Russia. His first name is Grigory I don't know if I can pronounce his last name, but I'm sure if you Google it, he said it's going to be out Wednesday. So if you Google my name and him, you'll find it. It was a long interview about this kind of subject and about the campaign and what we're doing. And, about a week or so ago, I had an interview with the UK press, the United Kingdom press. And before that, I had an interview with David Wood and we, with other people about what the Transhumanist Party is about and how we're moving forward. The other good thing that's happening with the Transhumanist Party is every Sunday now, we have the salon where we have a different guest. Where we talk about that guest and how they're involved in the whole transhumanist movement or their particular forte in futuristic technologies. For example, yesterday we had David Hansen of Hansen Robotics on. I mean, that guy is brilliant. He was actually one of my speakers at my conference. Like I said, that's where he approached Martine Rothblatt and they created Bina 48. So it was good to talk to him again. But that's the kind of stuff that we're doing with the Transhumanist Party. We're going to keep pushing it. We're trying to spread it out, as around the world with different transhumanist organizations in different countries. So that's kind of what I'm going to keep doing between now and then, and see how much I can push to spread these ideas.
Wow, that's really cool, and yeah, congratulations on that. And people should look out for the virtual the salon, the Virtual Enlightenment Salon. It's a very interesting forum, and the great thing about that forum is they have lots of people involved all at once, and they can bounce ideas off each other and formulate different arguments and different arrangements of thoughts and things like that. So that's really good, and it's good to see all the different people, especially Pavel and Gennady and Chairman Gennady and the others who are always in there. Very exciting stuff. So congratulations to the USTP on getting that as a fixed event. That's very exciting, and well done with working with the London Futurists. David Wood is one of my favorite people. He really gets across the issues, and he puts his he writes lots of books. I mean, he's a great writer. I've read some of his stuff, and he's a really, 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 really interesting person. And
he's a brilliant guy, and he's a nice guy too.
Really nice guy, smart guy. And he's he's got a 5-year time frame, which it's definitely looking better and better all the time, with a lot of the short-term stuff that he's talking about with cognitive advances and cybernetic advances and these other things. It's definitely very interesting. Well, Charlie Cam, I really want to thank you for taking the time out. I want to just remind people to go to the transhumanistparty.org in order to check out what you're up to, and the new virtual enlightenment salons, and all the different great things that you guys are doing over there, especially with an emphasis on life extension, but also technological advocacy and policies for achieving longevity, civil liberties, individual freedoms, rights, and well-being of sentient entities. Addressing existential risks, which is hugely important, and we're very excited with all the space innovation that's coming on right now. There's a big push for Mars at the moment, because the Earth is quite close to Mars in this period of time. So we're watching a lot of rocket launches and things that are going up to Mars. But with the more generic space stuff, SpaceX is bringing the cost of rocketry down and lift costs down and stuff like that. So expect more in the space scene, which might eliminate some of these things. With the pandemic, everyone is talking about science. Everyone, on both sides of the debate. And if you're anti-science, or if you're pro-science, or if you don't believe the experts, or if you do, either way, it's all a healthy conversation if you believe in Mars or you don't, because it's bringing these whole issues to the front, where before they were always just lying under the surface, and now people can see where they stand and where you want to stand on these issues. With this COVID thing, I mean, you can watch different countries and their policies, if they believe the experts, if they don't, and the amount of COVID cases versus not. And in the United States, if they shut or if they leave open, and the amount of cases, if they believe, if they don't. So it's really bringing the power of science and people's subjective ideas to the fore. Rationality in education, reforming political processes, improving governmental accountability, economic and fiscal policy, technological solutions to social issues, COVID-19 responses, just some of the party platforms, ideas advocated by you and your team. So we're really excited to follow along, follow your campaign, and we wish you all the best of luck, sir.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. And I know, and I appreciate all you do for us too, because you've done some great work with your various shows, and I really appreciate you having me on again. It's always a pleasure. You have a great understanding of this stuff, so it's fun to talk to you.
No, it's all right. I'm excited to get back into this. It's been a bit of a tough road for everybody, and a lot of people. The show disruption has mainly been to COVID, because me resetting up, and then you talk to people and they can't, because just a lot happening in the world right now, and it's we're a grassroots organization and a grassroots policy and a grassroots show and everything like that. We don't have big sponsors or money or anything like that, so it's all volunteer, it's all effort, it's all time, it's all it's all expended energy, and so it's everybody who's trying their best, and so that's the thing. So we have to work in and around that until we can get some other formulation. But thank you so much, Charlie, and we will see you again soon. And we'll see you again soon.
All right, thank you. We'll see you soon.
All right, thank you. That's Charlie Cam, the United States Transhumanist Party, and thanks everybody for watching the Arch Report.
Alone. Uncertainty. Doubt. Fear. In a strange place. Something stops you. Challenges test your strength. A rush of adrenaline. The light. The air. It is the moment. You elevated.
Life. We have goals that depend on bodies and brains. We work and learn better. We love better when our bodies and our brains function better. At Thrivous, our goal is to help you improve your brain and body, to help you achieve your goals. So that's the power we encapsulate. Ready for help with your goals? Visit Thrivous.com.